Good morning, adventurers. Kimmy, do you want to tell them where we're going?
We are going to Lexington to ride Royal Enfields.
Indian of Lexington is having their demo day. I think their main focus is the Scram and the Hunter 350. Pickle here has got her eye on the Scrum, which would be totally rad. So she's going to go ride that, and I'm just going to take the opportunity to fart around on the Interceptor, if you know what I'm saying. So we're going to take the car because it's really nice out. We're having a date day. We'll see you guys out there.
Bye.
Okay, we're fresh out of the sign up. They gave us a little safety brief in there, took our licenses, made sure we weren't some kind of felony criminal. And their little test area is a little empty because they just had 2 groups go out, but we've got a couple of Scrams. We've got a GT sitting over there. I love that bike. Beautiful. We've got a couple of the classic 350s. And we both got registered for the Scram ride, so I can't wait for that. That's going to be fun. Alright, adventurers, we've reached our riding portion of the day for the demo day at the Indian of Lexington, who has hosted the Royal Enfield demo days, and we are here for a very specific reason. We're here for the Scram 411, very recently released in the US. The reason we're here is actually my partner Kimmy is interested in one for her, everyday road rider. She's had a lot of older bikes and she's ready for something new, something fresh, so that she has to worry less and ride more. And we're just gonna dive in and get the specs out of the way. It's a 411cc single piston motor. It's fuel injected. We've got a 9.5 to 1 compression ratio, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. That's very important. One of the biggest differences between this and, let's say, my Himalayan is it has a 19-inch front wheel and a 17-inch rear wheel, as opposed to the Himalayan having a 21-inch front wheel. That brings our ground clearance down to a 7.9. Not crazy, but plenty for what we would refer to as a road bike. It also brings the seat height down a little bit to a just over 31-inch seat height. Huge gains there for a younger, a smaller, or a more inexperienced rider group. Having your feet flat on the ground really can benefit you and provide that confidence that you're not just going to drop it because it's too tall. Now, the other caveat to that is that it's coming in at a very sturdy 407 pounds. Now, that's not very light for such a small displacement motorcycle, but because of the way Royal Enfield has designed it, it's all very low center of gravity and very manageable. Again, because your seat height is so low and it's all designed to be low weight, you really don't notice too much of that weight unless you get yourself head over heels, you know what I'm saying? Another benefit is this has a pretty large fuel capacity for such a small bike. It has just under a 4-gallon fuel capacity, which if you leave it untuned and you're stock mapping, you're getting 150 miles, mile range. If you really baby it and try and hypermile that booger, I promise you could get close to 200. You could tickle that 200. Now, that's all the specs. That's all the technical mumbo jumbo. We're going to dive into really how the bike feels, how it looks, what we think about it. We talked about the difference between the 21 and 19-inch front wheel. That immediately screams that they are, in fact, doing what they're advertising. They're trying to pull back a little bit on the off-road portion of that Himalayan base frame and get you a little more into the urban exploration, not supermoto, but let's say scrambler hooligan kind of vibe. One of the things I noticed instantly was that instead of the 2-piece seat that the Himalayan has, this has a very stylized single-piece ribbed seat, which I really liked the way that looked. It looked way better, it felt better, and I also couldn't help but notice, because it's an exact Himalayan frame, you could, in theory, pop one of those seats onto a Himalayan, just as a side note. That's the other part of the equation here, is that because this is almost exactly a Himalayan, the aftermarket for these is already established. We're talking engine modification, we're talking aesthetic modification, There's also all the luggage add-ons and stuff like that. Their aftermarket already exists, so when you buy the new bike and you got some extra bucks to throw at it, you don't come up short with, oh, I have to make something, or I have to, I have to deal with not having it at all. It already exists. Because it's almost a Himalayan, they've reduxed a bunch of stuff off of it to make it a little more light, a little less intimidating. Because it is, when you buy that first adventure bike, they usually all have a large, let's call it a tower in front, or a big fairing in front. There's just a lot happening in front of you, and to some people that can be a little off-putting. But with the Scram, they've ditched all of that front rack and the 18 different gauges up front, and they've swapped that out for a single steering mounted headlight with a very, very simple gauge cluster, and I think they've done a really good job doing it. The other kicker that, again, with Royal Enfield's thing, just because they've done really well for themselves with these new models, they haven't jumped the shark here and increased their prices exponentially to capitalize on their success with all these modular models and stuff like that. These are still coming in at $5,000.
Cost me at least fucking $5,000.
You lay down $5,000 at a dealership and you can literally ride one of these from coast to coast, on road, off road. It doesn't matter because it's based off the Himalayan. We have the same motor. It's the 411. It's a very linear motor. It's not going to all of a sudden become very powerful at the end of the range or at the beginning of the range. The power is delivered very smoothly all the way through. We're going to go back to the front tire scenario. Because of that smaller wheel, it really wants to just lean into those curves for you. There were times on this demo ride where, as I just thought about the turn coming up, you could see the bike just start to instantly know that I wanted to head that way. The styling alone on these Royal Enfields with the original Himalayan and then its Scram variant, and then we have the 350 base where we have the Classic, the Hunter, and the Meteor, all being based off of roughly the same bike with some tweaks and stretches in between. They're still not sacrificing the beauty of a motorcycle because it doesn't have to be so raw. Most of these modern motorcycles, they've just got that raw motor in where you can tell where the engineering department for the motor and the guys carving out the clay never had the same meeting together. And it does not look like that for anything that Royal Enfield's putting out right now. You can tell that it was a labor of love. The design put into these is something that you can be proud of, even though you're only shelling out $5,000 or $6,000 tops. It's still a gorgeous looking bike. Everything, the fitment on it is beautiful. We're going to get into some of the downsides, is that it is not a fast bike. If you are trying to do your best Maverick impersonation, these are not the bikes for you. They are not inline fours. They are not, 8-valve dual cam. Nope, they are very simple motors. They are designed to be worked on the side of the road if you need to. They can be replaced. They can be repaired by literally motor parts that you can get from AutoZone. I personally have replaced the head bearings and the wheel bearings from in-stock parts from 3 different auto parts stores in town. You get, your bigger auto parts stores. So they are because they are so simple, it's a double-edged sword. They're simple because they're easy to work on, but because they're simple, they're not the fastest thing on the market right now. These bikes are aimed at what I refer to as a beveryman, an everyman. This is the Bruce Springsteen, but in a modern age. It is not aimed at just who can bring the biggest paycheck in, as we've talked about in our previous videos. This video is about people that just want to ride, they just want to get out there, and it's not them proving anything to anybody else but themselves, to just enjoy the culture and sport of motorcycling.
Alright everybody, before we end the video, I gotta give a huge shout out to Speed City Cycle, located in Indianapolis, Indiana. This place is not what you would expect from a typical dealer. The walls are covered in vintage memorabilia, pictures, parts, t-shirts, and anything you could dream of adding to your motorcycle. We had a blast getting to share stories with the staff and expand our knowledge on the history of Royal Enfield. The relaxed garage-style environment, mixed with an amazing customer service, made this experience truly one of a kind. If you're in the area or in need of any information on Royal Enfields, I can't recommend these guys enough. Stop in, give them a call, you will not be disappointed. I appreciate you all for sticking around to the end of the video. Don't forget to subscribe, share with like-minded people, comment, engage with us. Tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like. We want to hear from you. All right, and with that, we'll see you guys on the trail.